Perfect. Okay, so while the slides are there, how many of you guys know about Flutter? I think like all of you, right? No? And how many of you are developing in Flutter? और आप में से किन्होंने स्टार्टअप में काम किया है? अमेजिंग. आपको ये टॉक अच्छा लगेगा. बहुत सारे पेन जुड़े हुए हैं इस टॉक से. Can we have the slides, please? Amazing. Okay. So, अभी स्टार्टअप में जब आप काम करते हो, what did you face like most painful, especially in Flutter or like early stage applications? Workload management. Yeah, that's true. That's true. 16 hours, 20 hours. कोई वो नहीं है. Except that, मतलब जब हम development करते हैं early startup पे, and then you have already, like generally what happens is whenever I have worked in startups, I go there and they give me one application and says that now you have to develop on top of this. Ever happened to you? Right? And then what do? You're like, nahi, ye to kachra hai. Right? ये तो कचरा है, अभी नए से बनाने पड़ेंगे. Correct? So, like today my topic is actually related to that. अभी जो application हम early stage में बनाते हैं, those applications हम ऐसे fake तो नहीं दे सकते, but how to improve those actually, to scale those, right? Amazing, I can see the slides. Great, so this is our topic today, transitioning from MVP to a fully fledged, scalable Flutter application. And okay, so this is, I think the next slide is about me. So I'm Debasmita. I have, okay, let me just go back. Cool, it's loading. Okay, so I'll talk about myself. So yeah, I'm Debasmita. I have around 8 years of experience, especially in mobile. Also, I'm a senior mobile developer in Peggy, which is a company which deals with art and sells and resells arts, and mostly based out of Canada. And so I'm also a Google developer expert of Flutter and Dart. Abhi just nahi bani hu, 4 months back. And also like you will find a couple of my blogs in Medium, and some of my posts in LinkedIn and Twitter as well. So this is about me, and next we will move on to our agenda. ठीक है? So पहले तो हम समझेंगे कि what is MVP, and then what are the pain that we actually face when we go to a startup, and then they say ki, okay, this is our application and you develop on top of that. Correct? And then we will also understand how, like, what is a scalable application? We all talk about the app to be scalable, full-fledged, lot of features, performance. So what are those? And then I have actually divided the kind of the development process of scalable apps into 3 parts. First is design, and remember that this design is not like UI UX design, okay? Just the application design, development, and then release or post-release. And after that, we can talk about the topics, or maybe you can share your experiences as well, okay? Thoda heavy जाने वाला है talk, so be with me. So this is like MVP. अभी किसको बोलेंगे MVP की? अभी सोचो कि on a good Friday, office खत्म हो गया, you and your buddy is there, sitting there, watching Netflix and thinking कि एक ऐप बनाते हैं, right? बनाते हैं अभी, तो start करते हैं ऐप बनाना. Okay, so what will you do? You will not make like a full-fledged application with like a lot of servers, lot of design. You will just think, कि, okay, ये idea hai, and let's do something. Let's create a like a smaller version of it, right? So MVP is just like that. So जब startups अपने or maybe any companies जब एक idea होता है and they start with that idea, they don't know कि customers will love it or not, or even like recognize it or not. So what they does is create a like a very simplified version of the application, and like very small features, just to test the water, test the market, if this will work or not. Okay, so that is MVP. So MVP is built with the like thing in mind, is that less is more. So kam banao or market test karte, sort of like that, kind of like this. Okay, this is taking a long time to load, but this is funny. I am telling you. Uh, okay, God, Abhi the fun is gone. Should we wait for the meme? Raise your hands if you want to wait for the meme. अच्छा, meme देखने के लिए आए हो? Oh my God. Okay, let's move on. Last में दिखाती हूँ ये slide. Oh, okay, okay. See, so basically this is MVP. Now they are saying that okay, हमने कुछ तो बनाया है, especially the China wall, and saying that okay, next sprint में बनाए. Okay, so this is kind of MVP, correct? Now going ahead, अभी problems क्या आते हैं? So when you create MVP and then your users are loving it, okay? So then you think about अच्छा ठीक है, हम investors के पास जाते, app लेके funding तो मिल गई है, अभी क्या करेंगे? You have to develop the full-fledged application, right? With lot of features, whatever you have promised to the investors, right? So now अभी problem आता है कि आपका code unstructured है, आपने कोई architecture choose ही नहीं करी, कैसे भी कोड लिख दिया. So unstructured code, and then state management. So let's say like in Flutter there are like 3 state managers are mostly popular: River, Pod, Provider, and Block. Now for your application, let's say you have chosen a very basic state management, and now your app is like crying, saying that it is becoming more complex and it's not sustainable. Okay. Also code maintenance, right? So abhi ye hota hai, do you remember ki recently, I think not recently, I think recently it was in news, but last year like Elon Musk asked their like Twitter's cloud engineers ki ye server hatate, and then they said ki it will take probably a month or so, and then he actually went there and cut the server cords. So it's like that's the problem. So you have to maintain the code just like in a way कि code add करना is very easy and remove करना is also have to be very easy. Okay. And then design inconsistency. So what happens is like when you create the home screen, there's a couple of like design app bar कुछ भी है, there are a couple of buttons. अब जब तक आप in between screens में जाते हो, design change हो जाता है because you don't have any consistency. Okay. So now we will move on to see that how do we overcome these pitfalls, and when we start with this kind of applications, what to do now. So talking about scalable apps, right? So like I have recognized mostly these things that I have faced also. So in our application in Peggy, it's been almost 2 years. It's in the market for like 6-7 months, but we started developing very early, so almost 2 years. But when I joined that company, the application was actually very early stage, lot of problems. But then what I recognized was these are the things that should be there in a scalable app. Okay, so mostly like responsive design, and then the components should be reusable so that you don't have to write like duplicate codes multiple times. And then efficient state management, of course, for sure. And then going ahead, the performance has to be good. This is like a very important thing. And also at the end you have to test the application, right? So आपको code ऐसे लिखना है कि it's testable and maintainable. Now, what I think is to write a scalable app, as I said, it has to be like when you add new features, it has to be like very easy. So you quickly add some features, and then if your users are not liking it, you just get rid of them. So it's easy to add features and easy to remove them. If you can do that very easily, then your app is scalable mostly. Okay, now I was talking about 3 things that I have divided, right? So design, develop, and release. Okay, so हम कुछ examples देखेंगे, and whatever I faced in my application. So early, जब हम start करते हैं, there are like the designers will come up with Figma designs, and then like what happens is हम बहुत ज़्यादा excited हो जाते हैं app बनाने के लिए, and then we actually start developing without setting up proper themes, proper fonts, and then हम hard code करते रहते हैं. So this is an example. Can you guys see this? I'm not sure if it can be zoomed, but mostly, so basically what happens is like textiles, right? So a couple of textiles. So what you will do is like you will hard code them again and again. Colors, आप सारी जगह same colors फिर से define करते रहोगे. So that's the problem. So see, this is like one of the two of the screens that we have in our application. Now, when the designer actually came up with the design, the first thing that we should have been done was recognize a couple of things. So basically, this application has mostly 2 colors, right? Black and white. So the scaffold color is white, the button color is black, and then there probably would be a couple of more colors, like 2-3 colors. So, and then see here, like I'm just trying to find out the common things, okay? So the primary button is like sort of in same design. So it has white text and black background, okay? So then like what we should actually do is recognize these colors, and at the start of your application, even before developing something, you should just create the constant of those, right? Then you should also recognize the font sizes. कि fonts क्या क्या है. And a very good way to like declare the fonts is take t-shirt sizes. ठीक है? Extra small, small, large, ऐसे fonts कर लो. And here what we have done is पहले अगर आप देखते हो कि large bold है, मतलब large is the size of the font and bold is the font weight. So this is how we define the fonts, and this we have done this actually after a long time, like I think after 6 months of development. And then जब हमने ये change किया, there was a lot of work had to be involved. So early जब आप MVP से scalable app बनाते हो, early phase में ये कर लो, ये बहुत important है, okay? It's sort of like that. This is kind of a code snippet. ऐसे आप text को recognize कर सकते हो, textiles को, so that every time you don't have to like create this constants and then create this textiles and then like define those in whatever new application, right? The next thing is see the like theme of the couple of things. Let's say cards. यहाँ पे जो cards है, these cards. Sorry. Okay, yeah, I can point here. Okay, cool. So these cards, even see the app bar here, like it has same like theme. So these you have to recognize at first, okay, and then define them. So basically, Flutter में आप starting में ही theme को declare कर सकते हो. So here I have like the scaffold background color, and then text themes, all the text that I have already defined is there. And like whatever, let's say here there is a page transition theme where like Android and iOS would be different, like the page transition would be different. So these things are very important to do at first. And then the next thing is, this also comes under like design phase, which is reusable widgets, okay? So here again, the the buttons, right? So the button is, let's say, black background, white again. So what should we do is, like, initially probably MVP के time we probably would have written a button like this, जहाँ पे sign in है, उसके अंदर ही there are like couple of logics here कि sign in के logic लिख दिया, okay? तो ये चलता है when there is this is MVP, so you don't care about like क्या लिख रहे हैं, क्या कर रहे हैं, just to test the water, you just like okay ठीक है चलता है. But when you are creating application which is scalable, you have to kind of like create reusable widgets. I'm not sure if you guys can see this. It's like very small even for me from here, but I'm going to explain this. So basically what happens is, like, if you have buttons with same themes, create those buttons at first, and then like later you can create reusable widgets, reusable buttons, correct? Okay, going ahead. Now choosing the right architecture. So basically अभी आप जब डेवलपमेंट करते हो उस टाइम पे आप थोड़ा डेवलपमेंट करने के बाद यू थिंक कि अभी कुछ आर्किटेक्चर डिफाइन करते हैं, अभी बहुत मुश्किल हो रहा है कोड मैनेज करना, सो लेट्स डू अदर एमवीसी, एमवीवीएम, व्हाटएवर इट इज, बट दैट इज रॉन्ग. ओके, सो इनिशियली ये डिजाइन फेज में ही आता है कि यू एक्चुअली think about architecture and set up with your, like, set a call or like talk to your team and set up an architecture. Okay, so here I'm sure like this is an example which I think everyone who is doing Flutter knows about. This is the counter example, the basic counter example, right? So what happens is, like, here you see this counter logic, this is inside UI, and this is a very bad logic. Okay, so basically हम मतलब कोई भी आर्किटेक्चर आप चूज कर रहे हो, इट हैज टू बी डिवाइडेड इनटू 3 लेयर्स. एक तो यूआई लेयर है जो प्रेजेंटेशन लेयर है, जिसमें विजेट्स वगैरह रेंडर होते हैं, स्क्रीन्स दिखते हैं, एंड देन द लॉजिक ऑफ इट. सो हाउ द स्क्रीन्स आर, लाइक देयर आर कपल ऑफ, जैसे काउंटर वाला, राइट? सो अब जब बटन को पुश करते हो, काउंटर इज like increasing the count. So those kind of logics will go under business logic layer. And then finally jo APIs ke data, even storage, local storage ke data, that goes under data layer. So whatever architecture you're choosing, you should have at least these 3 layers defined. Okay, तो अगर काउंटर वाली एग्जांपल की बात करते तो see this UI layer where you can see the counter is a presentation layer. So इसको हम दो पार्ट में डिवाइड कर देते हैं. We can create a view model which can calculate the data, and then we have the UI which shows the data actually. So this is, again, you can't see probably, but yeah, so basically you can create a view model where you can put the business logic, and then you can have the UI where you can put like whatever UI design you have. Now, this is kind of a very, like, I have got so many questions around this कि MVC करना है, MVVM है, clean architecture है, फिर कुछ और करना है. That actually totally depends on your team. So in Peggy we had MVC first, then like initial phase में 2-3 months we had MVC, but then later we had to move from there because there were a lot of problems, and then our application was getting complex, so we moved to MVVM, and that is also fine. Even like initial phase में if you have an architecture, तो आपने तब डिसाइड नहीं किया और आपको पता नहीं था कि कितना कॉम्प्लेक्स होने वाला है, later you can choose an architecture. But yeah, talk to the team, think about the requirements, and then choose an architecture. Now this is a very controversial one, optimal state management. You all know, right? You have to choose a state management, right? Who thinks that, who is going to ask me this question at the end, what state management should I choose? Raise your hand first. This is for you. Right? So basically there is not a single state management is there which is like I can say ki acha yahi karte, this is correct, right? Even like in our application we messed it up so much in the initial phase. We started using, I think initially there were like half the application was just set state, nothing else was there. Then we started using stacked, then we started using riverpod, and then finally we are happy with this provider. Okay, so it changes depending on whatever like how complex your app is. But then it's okay to change the state management as well, right? But I have kind of defined these things. So if you talk about, like, I'll talk about mostly three state managements, which is provider, river pod, and block. And I have experience in most like these state management mostly. And so what I felt was like provider is the most easy one, right? So it's the easiest. And like if you don't know about any other, like you are very new to state management, even very new to Flutter, then you can like, quickly learn like provider and then like have manage your states, right? But then the more your app like gets complex, so you can use riverpod in a way. And mostly like when I was developing a banking application, that was the like most common complex one. And there was another one which is bounce, right? So bounce was an application which was very complex. Wahan pe bluetooth ke data the, which like we had to recognize, we had to like click on your like mobile device to open the scooter. So ye sare states hame recognize karne the. So we chose block then, right? So it depends on your application actually. And also you have to also think about this ki aapki jo team hai, if you're not working alone, aapki jo team hai, that team like what is the learning curve of that state management? आपकी टीम को ब्लॉक पता है और आप बोल रहे हो कि नहीं रिवर पॉड ही करेंगे. So that kind of like waste a little bit of time. So ये आपको ही choose करना पड़ेगा. Okay, moving on now. So now let's talk about developed state, which is the managing solid principle. So this is like a common basic one. Okay. So if I talk about solid principle, you know about solid principles, right? So I'm not going to go in deep. So the one that I am mostly interested in actually is dependency inversion or dependency injection, right? तो generally क्या होता है, MVP के time हम objects बना देते हैं class के अंदर, care नहीं करते, because we don't have to test, right? फिर आपको ध्यान आता है अभी तो MVP हो गए, अभी बहुत सारे बग्स आ रहे हैं प्रोडक्शन में, what to do now? अभी टेस्ट करना पड़ेगा. Then at a certain evening your leads comes up or like whatever your manager comes up and says कि अभी unit test introduce करते. Then you are like एक काम करते, एक बार चेक करते कि कोड टेस्टेबल है क्या. Then you have like tons of time and then you'll say कि अरे टेस्ट करने के लिए तो मुझे 1 महीना चाहिए क्योंकि टेस्टेबल ही नहीं है, पूरा ऐप रीराइट करना पड़ेगा, right? So dependency inversion is the most useful one that I feel, क्योंकि आप otherwise टेस्ट नहीं कर सकते आप. Okay, so yeah, so after that, so basically since we are talking about test cases, how many of you have done this? No? एक इंसान सिर्फ हाथ उठा रहा है, वो भी डर डर के. All of you have done, most of you have done this. No? I have done this initially. So हम ऐसे करते हैं generally most of the time, अगर MVP करते हैं तब कि हम प्रोडक्शन में टेस्ट कर लेंगे, या फिर मेरे को लगता है सबसे ज्यादा ऐसे होता है कि when you have written the code and then it is getting reviewed and then multiple times you are getting comments and then finally you are like okay ये तो चलेगा ही, just comment है, कुछ तो चेंज किया है and then प्रोडक्शन में जाके फट रहा है. So ये नहीं करना है. So how do you know कि ये प्रोडक्शन में जाके नहीं फटेगा? Is you write test cases. Okay, so when you write test cases, जितना भी आप चेंज कर लो, रिव्यू कमेंट्स आ रहे हैं, you just run the test case and you're done. You're like okay, this is working. So you have to do this. Okay, so now we are almost at the end of it, the release cycle, right? So there are a couple of things that you should actually do when you're releasing the app as well. So you have to optimize the app for Play Store or App Store. So the first thing is the first thing that you will check in app is basically the app size as well, right? What do you generally check? App size, performance, all this stuff, right? So definitely Flutter DevTools actually comes to the rescue. You can check how your application is doing, you can monitor the performance, and then finally go to the release, okay? Then the next thing is, this is what I actually faced recently, like 2-3 months back. We have in our application we have fingerprinting technology, and there was a developer in our team who actually leaked some of the code, and that was very serious thing. And we recognized that we did not obfuscate the code. So it's absolutely important if you have these kind of technologies, if you're in your application, it is very important to do this. Now, post release, there are a couple of things as well. Like you have to check how you monitor the application, right? So, like, कैसे चल रहा है? If are there any crashes, issues क्या आ रहे हैं, right? So you can do that with Firebase. So initially no. So we are actually doing that in Peggy as well. With Firebase Analytics, we check our application health. We check the crashes. We monitor the app, how many users are like logging in, events, and everything. Okay. And so there, like I have attached the plugin as well. So with that, you can actually test that. But it's absolutely important when you have a scalable, you want to do a scalable application or a full-fledged application, it is absolutely important to check your app's health. The next thing is also managing the crashes. And this is where Firebase also comes to the rescue. Firebase has Firebase Crashlytics, and you can check the issues, number of crashes, and how to like improve those, right? Basically, the urgent issues are there as well, so you can check all of those. So mostly, I think this is the last one. This is the last slide where like I summarize things. So what do we talk about? So mostly we started with MVP and the problems, and then we tried to set up themes. Those are the early things that you have to do in a full-fledged application. And then finally, reusable widgets. We talked about architecture, state management, and finally, performance check, app monitoring, and Crashlytics. So now I'm gonna go ahead and ask you, like, if you have any questions, you can just ask me, or if you want to share any experience that you have, you can just share with me. Amazing. You guys don't have any questions. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, so you can do that. So if you have recognized that generally ऐसे नहीं होता, so generally what happens is like 2-3 text styles are there. If you have sort of like that, then you can do small, bold, and then the color. Yeah, true. That's true. You should talk to your designer actually. If you have so many variables and colors. Acha, but yeah, so generally that doesn't happen. But if you have so many texts, you can actually, sometimes what happens is like if the designer is creating something, let's say font size 600, 700, they probably have done by mistake. So you can talk to the designer, ki ye similar lag raha hai, so what should I do? Any more questions? Cool, amazing. So you can connect with me. This has all my social media URLs. And thank you for being here. Thank you for being here and with me in the talk.